Let's chat about Bewitched. I've gotten several requests asking to do lives and those kinds of things, super informal, no script, where I just kind of talk about what I know and kind of run through the cast individually. So this is going to be my answer to that, as well as an opportunity to answer a lot of questions that I get because I do have a lot of videos that get a lot of views on the topic of Bewitched. Go figure, not something I ever planned on happening, but it happened and I'm thrilled it did. So if this is your thing, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's chat. How else do you say it? And I'll just run through some things to, again, hopefully spark some interest and get some comments going in the sense that you share your knowledge, because trust me, I learned so much from you guys. So let me just start with I mean, it's a bit of a random question, but it kind of pops up regularly that's actually kind of interesting. And that's, to my knowledge, who was the nicest person in the cast and who was the not nicest person in the cast. And I have heard about that. According to Bill, let's just say, Bill Asher, I'll explain a little bit about that in just a second here, but definitely, and other cast members that I've talked to as well, and crew. The most loved person in the entire cast over the run of the series was, this is probably not going to be a surprise, Marion Lorne, who played Aunt Clara. It just seemed everyone loved her, including Liz. And that's a huge key because she wasn't social with the cast at all. To my knowledge, not anyone without exception. And I'll tell you how so when I kind of get to her and we can run through her. But so who was the most not friendly? Notice I'm not really saying meanest. But anyway, I'll just tell you who it is. And I think when I tell you who it is, here moving forward, if you ever happen to see this person in an episode, you're going to say, oh yeah, I can see it. And according to Bill, the second Mr. Stevens, Frank, I got a sick headache, the second one, was just an unhappy guy, an unhappy camper, not nice, just angry all the time, just an unhappy guy. So once I learned that and I watched it, I could see it. He plays the role very blah, blah, blah. And if there's anything I learned in Hollywood, I'm going to say 95% of the time, what you see on camera is what you get off camera. It just holds true. Casting directors and people just know that they're going to be the most realistic if they are who they really are. Of course, there are exceptions, but in general, that's kind of how it is. Okay, so I'm going to give you 60 seconds of how I know what I know. I just got a comment yesterday on the Scandals video, the most recent one I uploaded, where someone said, I don't know, I've been sitting in front of cameras my whole life. And so, believe me, I'm used to it. I'm not sensitive to the haters out there. Haters are going to hate. What are you going to do? And he's literally, I think, quote, just shut up and introduce the segments. We don't want to hear what you think or about you, end quote. Something like that. Anyway, but listen, here's why I tell you that. There's really two reasons. One, my kids, it blows me away how much they believe nothing they see online. So that I think it's maybe a generational thing where I've just heard from them so much that they just think everything's fake. I just always feel a need to attribute what I'm saying and how I know what I'm saying, because this stuff that I say really does come from sources. And the second reason is, and it kind of gets to how I met Bill in the first place, is I started off as a TV journalist. By the age of 23, I was anchoring a major weekday newscast. It was crazy. That's a long story how that happened. Unbelievable. Then I went to a couple of different stations, ended up being entertainment reporter for CBS, got a call from LA. My agent, or not LA, my agent said, would you move to LA? There's a pilot. They would like you to move to LA. I moved to LA. Within 2 weeks there, my agent calls again, says, I have you an audition for LA Law, which was the #1 TV show at the time. I'm like, ha, 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 very funny, right? He goes, no, seriously, I have an audition for LA Law for you, for a co-starring role. I'm like, dude, are you kidding? So I go to the audition, blah, blah, blah. I end up getting the part. 2 weeks in LA, kind of unheard of, just luck of the draw. And then once I entered that world officially, you meet people, they invite you to parties. And when I say parties, at least the people that I knew, not like parties, let's all get stoned out of our head parties, but like, I say Hollywood crowd, it's really more of like Beverly Hills kind of crowd, Hollywood Hills kind of crowd. Those are just the people that are working the industry. So I got to meet like lots of people, informally, not like in an interview setting, though I've done many interviews, just to chat about things. And that's where I learn about stuff when I like, oh, you worked on Bewitched, or oh, you were on Bewitched, which was very rare unless they were a guest star. I almost always knew who they were. So anyway, that's just my attribution of where I'm coming from. I think, look, I am not a bitch. I am not a bewitched. I told you this was kind of informal and live. It's called live to tape, no editing. I am not a bewitched expert like some people out there who know episodes, and it was called this, and this person was in it, and it was shot here, and it was in this season. I don't really know any of that stuff. I'm just like most people, and that I grew up loving Bewitched, falling in love with Elizabeth Montgomery. If you notice, we have some episodes playing here. And I chose season 3 because to me, that's when Liz was the most alluring. When she wears those tight red pants, she's just so hot. I hope that doesn't sound cheeseball, but the woman is just stunningly beautiful and has tons of grace, in my opinion. And I think a lot of other people's opinions too. So, oh crap, what was I talking about? Um, I have no idea. So anyway, that's why I say what I say. Oh, I just met a lot of people. Oh, so I was at a party one New Year's Eve, up on Mulholland Drive, a really big, nice house, and they're like, oh. Someone just, who's going to be here, people, who's going to be here, but not necessarily because they're famous, but if they're friends of yours and if you know them. And someone said, oh, Bill Asher's going to be here. I'm like, you mean Bill Asher, like the director of I Love Lucy and Bewitched? And they're like, and Elizabeth Montgomery's husband, they're like, yeah, he used to be our neighbor, but we still hang out and he's going to come over. I'm like, oh, wow. Well, he never showed up. And I said to these people, oh man, I would have loved to meet Bill Asher. And it's pretty common that people do try to hook you up that way. If you're in the industry, they go, well, I'll call him and see if he'll meet with you. I'm like, really? Absolutely. Typically, I would say no to stuff like that, but I'm like, yes. Sure enough, I get a call a couple of days later. Yeah, Bill would love to meet you. He said, why don't you go out to his Palm Springs home, 2.5 hour drive down the 10 freeway in LA. And, you guys can go to dinner and just hang out for a while. And that's what happened. I drove down. I went to his house, very instantly nice guy. We go to dinner, we come back. There's like this lake in this back of his house. We sit out there for hours and he's just spilling it, just telling me everything. And that's not the first time I met him, but that was the first time. So yes, I have heard most of the things I will talk about from the horse's mouth unless I say otherwise. All right, let's run through cast. Enough backdrop. I'm just saying that because, boy, I mean, you know how it is online. Some people hate when I ad lib like this. Some people love it. They're like, oh, I just grabbed a cup of coffee. I felt like we were chatting. And some people really prefer the teleprompter, very formal, toss to segment, come back, toss to segment. Well, this is just hanging out with coffee. So that's what we're doing. All right, let's run through some cast. Let's start with, well, I'll tell you one. One of the latest people that I met, as in later, was Casey Rogers. Again, the way this stuff happens, I get a call from a really good friend of mine, actually. Hey, I'm having lunch with Casey Rogers. Do you want to come? Casey Rogers was Louise Tate #2. I'm like, yeah. So now this is in Palmdale, north of LA. So I jump in the car, I head out there, and I have lunch with Casey Rogers. It was just so awesome. And so, like, I learned stuff from her. This is a great example. That's where I learned that the day players they're not really day players. Anyone other than the top 3, unless they were a specific character, wore their own clothes on the show. They would have to bring them in, and wardrobe would have to say okay or press them or do whatever they needed to do. But today, like if I go somewhere, that's very controlled. You usually go ahead of time before you shoot. You have fittings. You go to wherever you have to, but it's all picked out for you. Everything, down to socks. In those days, as I learned from her, those were her clothes that she wore. So I learned that. And the other fascinating thing that I learned from Casey was just how much of a normal life many of those people had. I think even to this day, we just imagine Hollywood people of having this really radically glamorous, partying kind of life. Because even as I talk about parties, I mean, it's not like it happened all the time, but it would happen. And then there are people like Casey Rogers who would say, no, look, I was just a normal housewife and I had a job. I went home, I made dinner, I got the kids ready for bed, and I was married, all that stuff. So when you talk to Casey about her life, It was almost like she worked down at the corner store, but instead she went to the studio and played Louise. Um, had to wear the black wig. She didn't like that at all. She was blonde. You probably know that. And toward the end, they let her be blonde. But in the beginning, Liz didn't want her to be blonde because they thought it was they thought it was too confusing. So they made her wear a black wig. But really, just a nice, normal person, super nice person. But yeah, so that's how I learned these random things because again, not that I'm a Bewitched expert, but the one unique thing I bring to the table is I worked in the industry and got to know the people outside of a convention setting or a formal interview setting and like, let's chat. That's a great example. All right, let's keep going through the cast. David White played Larry Tate. I never met him, which is crazy because I lived just a few blocks from him. I lived in Glendale when I was in LA, which is a great place to work because, again, I worked in the industry just that was how I made money full time. Disney Studios were 10 minutes down the freeway. I worked there when I first moved to LA a lot. Hollywood Studios, including where Bewitched was 15 minutes from there. I'm pausing because I was never on Bewitched. I'm not that old. I know I look it, and I wasn't Merle. I say that because people who have watched Bewitched Continues go, oh, it's so nice the guy who played Merle grew up to do his own spinoff. I wasn't Merle. I just, when I wanted to shoot Bewitched Continued, which is the video that went very viral on YouTube, not the one that's on there because this is before Google bought it and it was on YouTube way back when. I just thought, oh, I'm going to just shoot a little home movie in my apartment at the time. That's all it was. And of course, I edited it and put sound effects in, and I eventually threw it up on YouTube for kicks and giggles, if you know the word I'm trying to say. And then next thing I know, bam, I'm literally getting calls. Hey, will you come speak at this convention, and will you do this? And it's getting views and views and views and views. And then I just did a couple more Bewitched things. Again, none of this is planned. And then, Google buys it and monetization happens. And now I'm making money on YouTube. Like, what? And I would see how much money I was making. I'm like, are you kidding me? Bewitched Secrets Behind the Scenes was actually like this. Go read those comments if you want to entertain. This guy's so full of himself. This is why they make teleprompters. Blah, 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 blah. Of course, most of them are very nice, and I appreciate them all. But that was the same that was just me doing this, but instead of just specifically talking about the cast, that was more specifically talking about the show, and it was way more produced. But that thing just took off and is the number one moneymaker on my channel. Again, so this is how I became the Bewitched guy, never planning it. Okay, so that's Larry and Louise. Fascinating, in my last video, I learned that David White, during when Bewitched started, was 48 years old. That's young. I was shocked because, Serena called him Cotton Top. He was supposed to be the old white-haired, gray-haired boss, whatever. He was a young guy during that show. He was not that old at all. But anyway, he lived in Glendale like I did. Apparently, regularly hung out at our corner coffee shop. Diner was there all the time. I never ran into him, but it's not like I went there much. But apparently he's very normal. So now we got two people who are just very normal, nice people. Let's go on. Let's go to the Kravitzes across the street. I'm trying to do like the main-ish people. Okay, so Alice Pierce, Gladys Kravitz, number one. Bill tells me that they weren't happy at all that she hid her cancer diagnosis from them. Not real surprising. Very tragic that she died of cancer. Like in the second season, she died like during the show. But worked up until the end. Very sick. Worked till the end. But if you don't, well, you probably don't know this. I mean, I'm sure some of you do. Some of you know everything. The reason she was such a great character actress, she was so brilliant. I think it was worth having her on there for 2 years. Just her, brilliant. But she had a character face with that looked kind of smashed in on the bottom, and that's because it was actually when she was a child, she was in a very bad, I want to say bicycle accident, but it could have been a car accident, some kind of accident that literally broke her all the bones in her face, something like really, really bad like that. And that's how she healed. So that face that you're seeing is a result of a really bad accident. But boy, was she good, right? Wow, was she good. in terms of personality and how she was, the thing that I hear mostly about her is that she was a sick woman, as in uh, physically, not emotionally. Okay, so then she was replaced by Sandra Gold. Gladys Kravitz, number two. What do I know about her? I know that she was. I don't know that. I don't know that I heard that she was bitter, but had like attitude a little bit. Very much resented that she was cast next to George Tobias, who played Abner Kravitz, who was really only, I think, when Alice was cast, she was 50. I think George was maybe 63. Again, please use the comments to correct me. I know you guys know more than I do. I think he was 63. So he was only like 13, 14, 15 years older than her, but she was very bothered by the fact that her character was married to this old man. That's a quote. And I don't think she liked working with him. Um, so that's that. In terms of George Tobias, Abner Kravitz, again, never really heard anything about him. I'm guessing he was just like showed up, he did his job, and he went home. I think just a basic good stand-up guy. Okay, what else? Aunt Clara. Okay, so here's a funny story I know about Aunt Clara. So Bill loved Aunt Clara, and he talked about her a lot, Marion. I guess he, the man who saw everything. Think of Vegemite, Vegemin, and all this stuff. I don't know if he directed that exact episode, but he directed the I Love Lucy's, was with most talent in the world, considered Marion Lorne to be an incredible talent. He talked about how he was amazed at how she did the whole mumble, stumble, stupid airhead thing, because he said she wasn't like that. She was kind of a sweet, naive, innocent, sweet lady, but that was all acting, all an act that she could just turn on and turn off. Speaking of ages, as much as I was surprised to learn how young Larry Tate was, I was surprised to learn how old she was. She was 83 when she was cast in that role, I think, like maybe 81, something like that. But think of that, 80s, and casting a show like that, and showing up, getting into hair and makeup, soot all over your face sometimes, knowing your lines, and acting. I just find that incredible. Again, sadly, she passed away, 3, 4 years into the show. Well, I know she's on season 3, so it was shortly after this. I think 2 years later. I think. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But a funny story. Again, Liz loved her. Liz actually hung out with her outside of the studio, which just never happened with anybody else, to my knowledge, other than Bill, of course. Marion lived in New York and would fly in when she was on episodes and stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel. You know, that real famous one. Is it Wilshire or Sunset? I think it's Sunset. Santa Monica. I think it's Santa Monica. You know, that real famous flamingo-ish Beverly Hills Hotel. And she called Liz one day and said, "Oh my gosh, I think I have the power." See, this makes her sound dumb, but this is what Bill says. I wanted the TV to go on, and it went on. And I didn't walk over and turn it on. Remember, this is 1960, what? 4, 5, whatever it was. And Liz goes over, because she was kind of flustered. So Liz goes over to her bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel and came to find out she sat on a remote control, which were brand new back then. And she wasn't, and I guess she kept doing it. I don't know if it was under. I think actually, now that I'm thinking, it was like under a pillow or something. And the TV kept turning on and off and on and off, and she was freaked out about it. I don't know, Bill liked that story, so I'm telling you. But again, very well loved. Okay, and then of course she was ultimately replaced, if you want to call that, with Paul Lynde. So Paul Lynde. You can hear, actually, you'll get a good idea of who Paul Lynde was if you watch Bewitched Secrets Behind the Scenes #2, because Bernie Koppel, I don't know how you say it. I say it with attitude because, again, someone was on there. You can't even say his name. And I can't. I don't know how to say his name. Though I've met him, I just don't remember how to say his name. Paul Lynde was just a kook, according to him. I'll just attribute him. Just a whack job. Again, remember how I said what you see is what you get? So, but to my understanding, Paul Lynde, think of Uncle Arthur, but substitute the laughing with a bitterness. And that was Paul Lynde. So if actually, I don't know if I should even say this, but when I was looking at Bewitched Scandals, the last version I did, it's called Bewitched Scandals. I don't like that title, apparently. It makes people click on things. Anyway, he just looks sloshed to me. Go watch him on Bewitched Scandals, and you tell me if he's not sloshed in that interview. Seriously, I'm talking like this, I think. Anyway, he couldn't drive because he was in so many accidents. And I'm not going to say that he got DUIs because I'm not 100% sure, but he couldn't drive. He had to be driven everywhere. He like he was beyond even being able to get another license. So, but he would apparently, showed up, knew his lines, was a great actor, but just kind of a not happy guy. Back in those days, I would say one of the biggest questions that I get was is Agnes Moorehead a lesbian? I know. Why am I getting all these whack job questions? I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to say they're whack job questions. They are legitimate, good questions. Truly, I'm not trying to say the right thing here. But it's crazy when you get it all the time. And look, I'll go without starting to talk about her. I don't know. No one ever told me that she was or she wasn't. The reason I mentioned that is Paul Lynde and Dick Sargent were known on the set. Now, this is the 60s. Were known by set, cast, and crew to be gay. But of course, it just wasn't out there publicly because back then it just didn't happen that way. But so he was kind of has been described to me as just a gay guy that was just unhappy and quirky. So that's Paul Lynde. Okay, who else? Who else is there? We did the Tates, the neighbors. Let's talk about day players for a minute. Day players are like the client, the women from the church bazaar. Crazy that Samantha did a lot of church things. You ever notice that? The women in the neighborhood committee, the diaper Dan, the piano teacher. By the way, that piano teacher guy, back to the Paul Lynde thing. I was hosting something once with June Lockhart. So it was a way back. I was probably in my 30s at that point, and very, very nice lady, from Lost in Space. And she talked a lot about, is it Dr. Smith, Mr. Smith, whoever he was. And according to her, because again, these people are all gone, he was just a nut too. She said to me, Barry, exactly what you see on camera is exactly who that man is in person. Complaining, weird, persnickety, all that stuff. So those kinds of people, those day players, like you'd say, that client, why is he using that client again? That actor this is like the 800th time this person has played a different role. There was a very specific reason for that, and that was because Bill, who was the director and producer, and Liz's husband, of course, would cast extremely informally and hire crew informally. Like he'd be home and go, hey, Bernie Koppel, however you say his name. I got a role of a pharmacist. I know you're in your 30s. He's kind of supposed to be in his 80s. But you think, if we put a wig on you and stuff, you could pull that off, kind of a crazy guy who's chasing Samantha around the room all the time. And Bernie would be like, yeah, sure. And he goes, okay, come on down to the studio and I do it. And then they'd hook each other's agents up with the studios that work out the deal. But that's how Bill cast. Bill, I get it. I've directed a lot of things in my tenure doing things, whether it's stage or film or television. And when you're a director, you don't have time for BS. You just don't have time. Some people take that to the umpteenth degree, and that was Bill. So much so that he would recast people that were easy to work with over and over again just because he didn't want to have to deal with, will they show? Again, you probably know all the problems they had with Dick York, so many problems. The last thing he wanted to deal with was problems with somebody else. So that's why you see the same people over and over and over again, because Bill would literally cast from his telephone, either in the studio or at home a lot of times, and say, come on over to the house, let's talk about this. That's how Bill was. But Bill was a very affable, likable guy, very easy to talk to, easy to get to know. I'm sure easy to work for. I'd never worked for him. So that's the day players. Okay, so who's left other than the big three? Or four if you count two Dicks. I hope that's it. All right, let's go to them. Let's go to Agnes Moorehead, since I kind of mentioned her a minute ago. So, Aggie, as people who knew her very well, but she very much preferred to be referred to as Ms. Moorehead, unless you knew her well. I still say Agnes, I don't know why. But Bill and everyone would call her Aggie. So I'll just see if I can start saying Aggie. Not that I knew her well, of course. So I never met her. There's actually a book out about her life. not out, was out. My guess is it's way out of print. It's called I think Lavender's in the title, but I'm sure if you look up Agnes Moorehead life story or something, and I read it like years ago though, and it was really interesting on many levels. I don't remember what they said and didn't say because mostly I remember what I was told by a lot of people actually. A lot of people talking about Agnes because she was such a driving force in that show and so well liked. So I've told the story of how she was cast. You know, Bill and Liz. Were married. Um, Bill got a script for a pilot about a guy being married to a witch, but it was a wicked witch, an evil witch. He went to the studio and said, "Can we make her a nice, beautiful witch? And can Liz play her?" Tested it. At the end of the day, the answer is yes. Okay. So now they're getting ready to do the show. The script's going through all kind of manipulations. I showed you in one of my videos. Bill gave me it's over there, but I don't know that I can get up and get it. A script from the pilot where Samantha's name was Cassandra. If you go look at Bewitched Scandals videos and you see all the promos that they put on the air before Bewitched hit the air, the logo is completely wrong. They had a completely different Bewitched logo before the show aired. So it was going through a lot of changes. But I know one of the big angst issues for Bill was that they couldn't find Mother because it was the number 3 lead. So Liz and Bill are shopping at a downtown New York department store, Manhattan, and Liz sees Agnes Moorehead at a makeup counter, shopping, not working there. Again, I got a comment, you don't know anything. Agnes never worked at a makeup counter. She did movies. I know. When I say the makeup counter, I never said she was working there. She was shopping at a makeup counter. I know. I laugh. You got to love the comments, though. You read them, I'm sure. Working at a makeup counter, Liz goes and grabs Bill, Bill, I found Mother. Let's go get her. So they walk up to Agnes and say, hey, will you, we got this great pilot. We need a mother. It's a lead role. Will you do it? She said no. They said, okay, we won't make you work all the time. We'll fix the part so it's easy for you. Will you do it? No. No. Lots of no's. And then they eventually came to a dollar figure to which she said yes. I got a question 2 days ago. Did Agnes Moorehead like being on Bewitched? My answer to that would be, again, my answer, according to all the people that I've talked to, she only did it for the money. Period. I've never heard that she didn't like it. I've never heard that she was mean. I constantly heard what a diva she was. Agnes, again, what I said earlier, Agnes off camera was exactly who Endora is on camera, minus the character of being mean, the wicked witch-ish. But that affectedness, that over-dramatized darling stuff, whoever talked like that, that's who Agnes was on camera and off camera. And a diva went on record, I won't do my own standing ins. When a stand-in is there and they're setting up the shot, the microphone, the focus of the camera and everything, she wouldn't do that. You can see stand-ins on my Scandals video. So that's how she was. So anyway, the thing that made Agnes do it, according to Bill, is Agnes loved to shop and she loved to throw parties. Now, again, Hollywood parties, not 2020s Hollywood parties, 1960s Hollywood parties, which even I shouldn't say that, because if you watch some movies from back then, they were all like drug-induced parties. They weren't like that. Soirees, kind of formal-ish. So Agnes was 63 when she was cast in Bewitched. So the kind of parties a 63-year-old Hollywood actress would play. I'll bet I get hate comments on that. That's not old, whatever. You know what I'm saying. They were nice parties, but she loved to have them and had them, and loved to shop. She spent a lot of money in real life. So Bill eventually worked out a deal with her where she only had to work 1 day a week for a lot of time. And then she started working more as time goes on. This series grew, but she eventually said yes, and that's how Endora came along. I don't know whether or not she was a lesbian. I do know that she adopted a child, a boy, and it didn't go well on many, many, many levels. I'm not privy to all the details. The book may talk about it. I'm not sure, but to my knowledge, it just never clicked. It was kind of sad actually, because she adopted this boy, and when the boy was 18 and the boy just didn't want to be there, and when the boy was 18 he left and never spoke to her again. That's my understanding. All right. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to get that wrong. But again, it doesn't sound like she did anything wrong to my knowledge. It just didn't work out at all. All right, let's go to the Dicks. Let's do Dick Sargent first. Darren number 2. Again, that's someone I met. I think I told that story before. I was at my agent's office on Hollywood Boulevard, and here comes Dick Sargent. It's crazy when you work in this business because you never know who you're going to run into. And he sits right there. I'm like, of course, there's no way he can know or who would know that like Bewitched was like my childhood all-time favorite thing. And I'm like, well, eventually we're talking, and I find out we not only is he in my same agent's office where there are agents, but we have the exact same agent. Crazy. So Dick Sargent. So the thing about Dick Sargent and everybody, I have never heard anyone say, this is not meant to be accusatory or anything. I have never heard anyone in all the years, which aren't tons, that I've been doing this stuff and reading comments. Dick Sargent was my favorite Darran. I've never heard that once. People constantly say Dick York was their favorite Darran. So Dick Sargent played the role very differently. Even though I just got a comment the other day now, and again, I learn a lot of stuff from you. Again, not that I can research it, but I'm telling you what someone said, that when Dick Sargent was cast to replace Dick York, Sargent called York and said, "Tell me about playing Darran." And they connected that way. But clearly, Dick Sargent played that role very differently. He was angry, unhappy, frustrated. Dick Sargent brought a huge negativity to that role, which is why I think Dick York was so brilliant. To me, Dick York was a brilliant actor. Again, when you've acted and you see words on the page, you can go in a million different directions. And sometimes you think, how do I go in that direction with those words? But think about it, because they had the same writers. Dick Sargent and Dick York had the same words on a page. Look how Dick Sargent played it, and look how Dick York played it. Dick York was brilliant. You liked him. You were his champion. You wanted him to win. You wanted it to be okay for him, but you never really felt like, even he was mad, he's like, well, then that's how it is, or however he would play it. It was not like, ooh, I'm afraid, where Dick Sargent did, ooh, I'm afraid of him mad. You know what I'm saying? So, but otherwise, Liz loved him. They were good working friends. Again, I mentioned Dick Sargent was gay, and he was very out late in his life, so much so that he was asked to grand marshal the Pride Parade in West Hollywood. He asked now the much older Elizabeth Montgomery if she would co-grand marshal it with him and ride in the float, and she did. That I say that because that's how close and tight they were, clearly even after the run of the show. So, whereas with Dick York never heard from Liz again, ever, from the day he was carried off the set on a stretcher. So that's Dick Sargent. He's just a nice guy. All right, so let's go to Dick York then. So we have, what do we have? We have Dick York and Liz. I don't remember what time we started, so I'm sorry if this is going long. Hopefully you have your coffee and you're hanging in if you want to, or you're watching it in pieces. All right, Dick York. This one's just always so tough for me to talk about, and so is Liz, actually. All right, so, all right, Dick York. Everyone knows he hurt his back on the set of a movie, was heavily taking pain pills for it. As I recall, Bill didn't know any of this when they cast him. Of course, he could have made a few calls. He could have found out. But, Dick York was quite handicapped, for lack of a better word, during the entire time he was there. Like, in between scenes, he's laying on a big flat board, kind of catty corner to the wall until he has to go on there. Sometimes his back was so bad, they literally had to pick him up from there, carry him onto the set or the couch, and place him down, and he would do a scene, and they would have to pick him up and take him off. That's how bad it was. Now, of course, he was taking pain pills. So, again, keep in mind what I said about the brilliant actor he was. I have nothing but admiration for him, really, in every area. But, if I'm going to talk about them, and you want to know what I know, I got to go down this road because this is all, again, this is from the horse's mouth. This is Bill telling me these things. So this isn't, I heard someone say, or I read somewhere online. This is the director and producer of Bewitched who worked with him every day telling me what went down, because people always want to go know what went down. And when Dick York tells the story, he says he left the show. That's his basic story. I was sick. My back was bad. I had to leave the show. That's very much not Bill Asher's story. I'm also very cognizant, let me say, that Dick York's kids are still around. I would love to interview you guys if you're watching this. I have nothing but admiration and respect for your dad. And I believe he is totally 50% responsible, every bit as much as Liz responsible for the success of Bewitched. I say this to his kids, and I say it to all of you. I have nothing but compassion for his substance abuses. I have worked as a volunteer at many substance abuse places. I, by the grace of God, have not had to deal with substance abuse. I'm just telling you that so you understand where I'm coming from. But I've been around it a lot. I feel that people who have to anesthetize themselves so much, whether it's because of pain or abuse in their background, a difficult childhood, a difficult life, whatever. I have nothing but compassion for those people, and I personally never judge them, but I say, there, but for the grace of God, go I. That's just how I roll. But this is what went down with Dick York. So that's what I say, by the way. Dick York was not only very addicted to pain pills, but he was very addicted to other drugs, very hard drugs, and alcohol as well. So what happens now? All of a sudden, he's coming onto the set stoned. Or worse, he's just not showing up for shooting. So it's hard for me to put into perspective what a gigantic deal that is. That is such a big deal. Now, again, sometimes I'll go on a set and there are literally, so I've done things where I'm the only person in the scene, and there are literally 100 people out there for cast and crew. 100. I don't think they had 100, but they probably had like 30, maybe 50, depending on the special effects, the pyrotechnics, and people were in the rafters making things move on wires. So all of these people are here, not to mention, and track with me on this one because it's really important in the story, Liz, who was there on time getting on hair and makeup, who has 3 kids at home that she could be spending time with and is kind of torn that she has to go to work. And then Agnes and her diva attitude, and Bill trying to get a show up. They had to do so many shows in a year, and they're all just sitting there, and Dick doesn't show up. So they can't shoot anything. Now think about that. It's a gigantic problem. So what do they start doing? They start having 2 scripts. Okay. Oh, well, they just had to have 2 scripts. No. Again, if you know the way this works, the whole pre-production process is gigantic. For example, there could be an episode with a spooky chair that has to have a marionette. And then the other script, check this out, has an episode with a pink polka-dotted elephant. So now not only do you have 2 scripts, but you have to have the chair, like 12 chairs, one that collapses, one that's a puppet, one that does this, just the legs move, one where the back things, you have to have all that over here. And then you have to have the animal handlers over here with a painted pink polka dotted elephant, determined on whether or not Dick York shows up. It's gigantic. Bill got to the point where he started where, when Dick wouldn't show up, this is him telling me this now, that he would get in his car and go drive to his house and bang on his door, bang on the window, look through the window, and there Dick is with his wife passed out in the bed. They don't even hear him. There's no way Dick's coming to work today, even as he would say, even if I could get him up, there's just no way he would be able to do what he had to do. So season 5, they're shooting an episode called Daddy Does His Thing. Dick passes out and has a bad seizure. He has to go to the hospital. At this point, we'll talk about it next, but Liz doesn't like Dick. That's the understatement. Everything I just told you, that's the understatement. So I'm imagining Liz going, and all the while Liz is saying, we got to get rid of him. We got to get rid of him. I mean, she had been saying that, I think, for years, actually. So I'm guessing at this point, Liz goes up to Bill and goes, will you finally listen to me now? So Bill gets into his car. This is Bill telling me again, goes to the hospital, stands at the hospital bed, and says, buddy, I'm afraid you're done. We can't have you back. And Bill fired him in his hospital bed after his seizure, just like that. Apparently, he was very gentle, very kind, very supportive, but he was unquestionably fired and never welcomed back on the set again. From that day on, he never heard from Liz or, to my knowledge, Aggie. We know he heard from Dick Sargent, but he didn't work with him. And I think he was just completely cut off from everybody. Very sad. Breaks my heart. It really does. What an incredible, brilliant actor. But that is the true Dick York replacing Darren's story. And now think about it. By this point, they've replaced Gladys Kravitz. They've replaced Frank Stevens, the dad. And now they're replacing Darren, which is huge. And so again, Liz all along had been saying, we got to get rid of him. We got to get rid of him. I can't imagine, I really can't imagine if that was like my co-star and I had to deal with that all the time, because it was all the time. So it wasn't just that, he was kind of had this handicap where he couldn't walk and couldn't move very well. And now he's not showing up, and then he's showing up and he's tossed and someone's going to go sober him up and all this stuff. I get it. It's not hard for me to imagine at all. Again, with 3 kids at home, I have kids, and, you just can't wait to get home to your kids at the end of the day. So anyway, that's that story. I don't know what to say about it. I think he's an incredible talent. When I watch Bewitched to this day, I marvel at his talent. I marvel at it, but that's the real story. So, and then they made Liz pregnant, and she had Adam just to kind of divert, and then they brought in Dick Sargent. Okay, so let's talk about Liz. So, I never met Liz by choice. I was asked a couple times, hey, you want to meet Liz? And I said no. Not because I thought anything bad about her. I had just met a lot of people that I really respected in the past. And then you meet them and you go, what a jerk. And I'm not saying that would be her, but I rather would keep her up on my beautiful, perfect woman pedestal. So I just didn't want to meet her. I don't know if you think that's weird, but I didn't. So, and then of course one day, and again, she's around when I'm there during this time, working in Hollywood now. And I was shooting on location somewhere. I remember it. I think it was in San Francisco, but I'm not sure. I was somewhere on vacation, shooting on location. I was actually on the set, and my phone kept ringing because there were cell phones by now, ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. And I finally picked it up, where I got the messages, and just everyone was calling me, Elizabeth Montgomery died. Elizabeth Montgomery died. Elizabeth Montgomery died. So yeah, it was a sad day. But no, I never met her. Then of course, Bill actually talked about her a lot. Bill would say, now at this point when I'm with him, he's remarried, and they had been long divorced. He was very much in love with her, or loved her, however you want to say it, very much, and had no bones saying about it. He loved her. So Liz had a tough childhood. We're rounding it all out, by the way. Liz had a tough childhood. A dad who didn't love her. Who didn't show emotion toward her, say nice things to her, support her, any of that stuff. And she would say that was very damaging to her. To my understanding, so Liz loved the color. She loved animals. When you hear people describe Liz, Bill included, it almost sounds like, I don't mean this in a bad way, it almost sounds like they're talking about another kid. They love the color, they love to draw, they love horses. I mean, that's how Liz was discovered. Playful-ish, and then, but more high school-ish. I don't know what I should say and what I shouldn't say, but let's just say maybe, how about this word? Flirtatious. That was Liz. Though, again, on the set, now I just painted a picture. Imagine what that set was like with the whole Dick York thing, switching the Darrans, ratings go down. Toward the end, Liz doesn't have a bra on. You're like, who is this person? Because it didn't necessarily look like, not in a good way most of the time. And the hair and things, it just wasn't clicking toward the end. The ratings were down. They weren't into it. She wasn't into it. Even though they wanted to keep doing seasons, she just left in the middle of season 8. So, to the flirtatious part is, I think now, it really wasn't not too long ago. It's kind of known that she took off with the director. She was having a fling with director Richard Michaels. A lot of people online will correct me and say, why don't you mention the fact that Bill Asher was having a fling with everyone? Now, he didn't tell me that, but I will tell you that one of the reasons he lived in Palm Springs is he spent a lot of time in Palm Springs with Desi Arnaz. Um, he talked to me a ton about his I Love Lucy days, and I didn't give a squat. Isn't that funny? But I didn't care. But he talked a lot about it. And apparently, the things you see on the I Love Lucy movies about the way Desi was with other women and things were the tip of the iceberg. And I guess Bill wasn't as bad as Desi, but let's just say Bill was present and part of. Now, that is the different kind of party scene. That was that kind of party scene. So yes, Bill was part of that background, and so apparently Bill was no angel when Elizabeth was running around either. But there was definitely running around going on. To my knowledge, I think she actually just left a note one day and said, "I'm done. I'm going to Europe with Richard Michaels." Like this is the middle of shooting in the 8th season, and so they shut down production. End of story. My gathering, I'll round that out this way. It was never a happy, chummy set, ever. Even though Bill Asher is the most affable, likable, relaxed atmosphere guy, I think with the situation with Dick York, that was just constant tension. Liz has the fact that now we hear from cast and crew, and I was told this. I never said it until I heard other people say it online. Liz hated with a passion Dick York. I don't know when that started. Um, Dick York was in love with her. If you watch some of the scenes, because there's ad libbing and acting. When I say ad libbing, there's room for you to act to be a character. He is. If you watch like some of these seasons, he's constantly kissing her, little pecks and silly pecks, and you'll see her go, "Ooh, okay, well," like totally taken off guard. He's just all over her sometimes, and apparently she knew it, and he loved her, was in love with her, even though he's married, and she just couldn't stand to even be in the room with him. So that is the set atmosphere. Liz was very standoffish with everyone. Again, to my knowledge, never hung out with anyone other than Mary and Lauren for the first couple of years of the run of the show. She would go to Aggie's parties sometimes, would kind of go make an appearance and leave. Her best friend, to my knowledge, I think was because I think she might still be around. And again, if you happen to be watching, love to interview you. The woman, I don't know the actress's name. She plays Seinfeld's mother in the TV show Seinfeld. She was, and she's done a lot of things. That's just what pops into my head. She was Liz's best friend in real life while Liz was still alive. So Liz went on record to say, this isn't me making any claims. She said, quote, "I would never win a Mother of the Year award," end quote. She worked a lot, had a tough schedule, and I think she was just quite childlike in the way she approached life. If you watch her in interviews, this is her and Bill talking. She's terrible in an interview. She's awful. But she's the most brilliant actress. To me, when I watch her, it's funny, on that Entertainment Tonight clip, she goes, "Oh, I learned so much." I'm like, what was there to learn? You were perfect. And this isn't me being enamored as a little boy or entering puberty with this beautiful female on the screen. This is me like as an adult watching now going, wow, you are such a good actress, whether you're crying or happy or acting scared or whatever. Just so believable, just nailing every single line, never throws away a line, never drops a line. She was brilliant to me, where Agnes would drop a line, I think, sometimes. And even Dick, though Dick was brilliant to me too, but the brilliantest was Liz. She was just on point, so much so. But off camera, she was, you just watch her interview. You'll kind of get her a little stumbling and awkward. She hated being interviewed and never wanted to be. She did very few for that very reason. They're always awkward if you watch them, I think. But that's nothing to say about her as a person. Some people are going to interview. I've interviewed literally thousands of people in my lifetime. Some people are good interviewees and some aren't. There's nothing about them. Either they are or they aren't. Tragically, she died at way, 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 way too early. But she lives on, and what she brought. I know she did a lot of things after Bewitched, but for me, it will be all be about Bewitched because there is that show was magical in the magical, wonderful sense. Dick York was brilliant. She was brilliant. Agnes Moorehead was brilliant. Marion Lorne was brilliant. They just nailed it. They just nailed it. I think it's rare in the entertainment industry, whether you're talking about movies, films, or stage. We've all seen them. This certainly isn't the only one where you watch something and you go, "Dang, that was good." And that's what Bewitched was. So no big surprise that it was the number one show for years because it was that good. No big surprise that today, again, you go read comments on any of my videos, comments from people all over the world who still watch it daily. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 60 years after. So it was good. So anyway, I hope you guys like this. This is just, again, this is kind of me chatting with I know. If you like it, we can do other ones. Just let me know. But it's just kind of me shooting the whatever with you, telling you what I know. But I will end with just telling how much I appreciate all of you. I know I talked about some negative things here, kind of like they're doing those late night talk shows where they read the mean tweets. But those are really a small percentage of the wonderfulness of you guys. I will tell you that nothing makes me more excited when you guys share your knowledge. When you say, "Yeah, but I understand that," or "Yeah, I heard that," or "I read that." That I would love for this to be that. Where no, you said Marion Lorne was 83. She was actually 12, whatever. I would love for you guys to do that because, as far as I'm concerned, as I end a lot of my videos these days, keep the magic alive. I think it's just kind of fun that we get to keep the magic alive, and I appreciate you guys for all of that. So we'll see you next time, and take care.